Part 11. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 102. This can be regarded as Lin Sun's advantage, but it can also be regarded as her shortcoming. It is precisely because of her desire to control that she was so arrogant that she did not realize that the changes in Lily and Lin Shui in the past few years gave Lily a chance to practice martial arts. Take advantage of the opportunity. The downstairs of the Lin family mansion has become lively. Lin Jianya has a good reputation and status among the provincial leaders. He invited these people to attend the birthday party of his stepdaughter Lin Shui. Many big shots in the city came, and some young people came. Hidden in the dark, Lin Shui wore a pure white dress and came downstairs holding Lily's arm. It attracted the attention of many people downstairs. Many people looked at the lucky mother and daughter curiously. When seeing Lin Shui's innocence and beauty, many people showed interest in their eyes. "Sister is here, let me introduce you." Lin Sun, holding a glass of red wine, was surrounded by a group of people. He seemed like a born queen, exuding a cold and attractive aura. This is how she is described in the plot, but in Lily's opinion, she only sees a girl who is only 13 years old. She has developed well because she drank space water. She looks like a 16 or 17-year-old girl. Her face is obviously still a little immature, but she just does it. I don't know why these people didn't notice this incongruity. They saw Lin Sun holding a glass of red wine. He exuded an aura of loneliness. There was a tall man hiding in the dark next to him. When the distressed eyes fell on her, Lily almost couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. "This is my good friend, Jia Jia." Lin Sun reached out and stroked her hair. This simple action seemed to have infinite attraction for her, making her naturally charming. It caused the eyes of the man sitting in the dark to darken a little deeper, with a hint of desire in his eyes, as if to say, "My little one, stop spreading your pride and charm to people everywhere, I haven't seen that. Many people are already looking at you, damn it." Judging from the memory in her mind, Lily knew that the man in front of her was definitely nicknamed Dragon King. He could command the underworld forces of all China's underground organizations and his methods were infinite. Long Yi is handsome and cool again. These two people can be said to be the final victors in the end of the world. They have established the largest base in the country and are called One King and One Queen. Although he was sitting in the shadow, Lily's internal strength was already considered profound at this time. She glanced at Long Yi and took in all the expressions on his face. In order to avoid being noticed by Long Yi and attracting others' attention, Lily only took one look and then moved her eyes away. Instead, they fell on Lin Sun's so-called best friend, Jia Jia. Jia Jia's original surname was Mu, and she grew up with Lin Sun when she was young. The two have a great relationship. The key is that she died to save Lin Sun in her previous life. So after returning from rebirth, Lin Sun took great care of his only friend. He not only gave her space spring water to drink, but also taught her many ways to survive in the apocalypse, the things he knew about Long Yi, and how to ask Lin Jianya. Lin Sun didn't hide anything about his stepmother and Lin Shui's revenge from Mu Jiajia. The Mu family is also quite prestigious, and it is precisely because of this. Later, when Lin Shui was so unlucky and did so poorly, she was also indispensable. Fortunately, Lily had already prepared it today. She was still going to use the talisman this time. She was not afraid of old-fashioned methods, as long as it was useful. Just like in the plot, she watched with her own eyes as Lin Sun gestured for someone to bring a glass of wine with added flavor to Lin Shui. This was a wine that could make people unable to move, but make all feelings clearly magnified 10 times. Because of this, Lin Shui she clearly felt the pain of Shui being gang raped, and almost went crazy in the end. Lin Sun sneered and asked someone to give the wine to Lin Shui. When he watched her drink it, he felt relieved. On the other side, Long Yi was already watching his little thing attracting other people's attention. Once he saw that the matter was accomplished, he couldn't stand it anymore. He stood up with a tall figure, held the little princess of the Lin family in his arms, and dragged her along. She left, leaving everyone with countless reveries. Anyway, Mujiajia was watching the matter, so Lin Sun was not worried. As soon as she left, Lily was about to walk towards her daughter when she saw Mujiajia wave her hand, and several men who were sitting everywhere started to wave towards her. Over here. Lily turned around and walked towards Mujiajia. When she patted Mujiajia's body with the talisman in her palm, the talisman suddenly sank into Mujiajia's body and she froze. Lily did the same to the men who came over. The group of men froze immediately. Lily chanted a few spells, and these people followed Mujiajia in a daze. She just changed the original nature of these people. The target of the mission was changed to another person, and Mujiajia was asked to replace Lin Shui. Since Mujiajia dared to do such immoral things, she should have the awareness that she would also get retribution. After all, it was Li Beihe and her daughter who could not let Lin Sun off again. But he has never offended her. Since she wants to pretend to be loyal, naturally Lily cannot let her go. Holding her already uncontrollable daughter in her arms, Lily easily brought her into the room. Lin Jianya was busy teasing with the beauty at the moment and did not notice the disappearance of their mother and daughter. And the main purpose of the guests of the Lin family was Lin Jianya and Lin Sun, the father and daughter, so they did not pay attention to the situation on Lily's side. After entering the door, Lily patted Lin Shui on the back twice, and then released her inner energy from the palm of her hand. She was relieved when she saw Lin Shui spit out a large mouthful of wine. "Mom, what happened to me just now?" No matter how innocent the 15-year-old girl was, Lin Shui instinctively noticed something was wrong. Until now, Lily was not prepared to hide it from her, so she decided to keep it secret tonight. Lin Sun was going to drug her and have people gang rape her, and he told her about the situation when these people were sent away by him just now. Lin Shui was stunned, and for a while, she probably still couldn't accept this fact. Although she usually hates Lin Sun and has small targets against her, except for the small intrigues between girls, she has never done anything truly hurtful. Len might as well accept this dark side. She was stunned. Lily gave her time to accept the matter. Seeing that Lin Shui was stunned, she asked softly, "Xiaoxiu, you don't have to ask anything, but mother can give you two choices now. One is that mother will protect you. From now on, Lin Shui Sun can't hurt you, and I will repay her double the designs she has for you in the future. The second is that mom will teach you some good things so that you can deal with Lin Sun well in the future, and let out this bad breath." Just like Lily imagined, Lin Shui nodded without hesitation, "Mom, I want to study." Among Lily's various martial arts, in addition to the 9 Yang Manual and the 9 Yin Manual, there are only the Tao Te I Ching and Gushu. There are still many years before the end of the world, and it is not too late for Lin Shui to learn now. Lily thought about it for a while. In the past, the Yimei school's swordsmanship was ethereal and light, and women were very suitable for practicing this type of martial arts. As for the 9 Yang Manual and the 9 Yin Manual, one was that Lin Shui had never been exposed to martial arts, so he was staring at her again. Something might go wrong. More importantly, Lily had a hunch that these two martial arts could not be easily taught to others, so after thinking about it, she decided to use the 9 Yang Manual to combine some of the Yimei sect's mental techniques that she could barely remember. Created a set of his own and taught it to Lin Shui. I don't know if it's because there are no other martial arts in her martial arts column, so Lily has a hard time recalling the Yimei sect's martial arts. Fortunately, the origin of martial arts in the world is the same. As long as she can master one method, she can master all methods. After reminiscing on her own and integrating her own experience, she was able to create a kung fu suitable for Lin Shui based on the two peerless internal skills she had practiced several times. After the next morning, Lin Sun came back with a proud look on her face. She probably hadn't thought of her good friend Mujiajia yet. At the moment, she was just staring at Lin Shui, who couldn't sleep because she thought too much all night. Thinking that she had been hurt, he felt proudly relieved. Although he didn't know why Jia didn't reply when he called her in the morning, Lin Sun guessed that something was wrong with her. Due to his past life experience, Lin Sun believed that nothing could happen to Jia. As long as he no longer allowed her to save him from death, it would be impossible for her to cause any other troubles. Therefore, when Jia did not contact her for 2 days, Lin Sun only thought that Jia was estranged from her friend. After experiencing the apocalypse, Lin Sun had a very cold personality. Although it was a pity to lose a friend, as long as what a person like her lost was not her own life, it didn't matter to her. Anyway, this time is not like the previous life. Jia saved her, and she doesn't owe Jia anything. If she doesn't want to be friends with him anymore, it's just her loss. In the next few years, she continued to use Longyi to set up traps for Lin Shui. From the beginning of drugs, she later wanted to use this drug to force Lin Shui to sell her body. In the past few years, Lin Shui practiced martial arts with Lily. After knowing Lin Sun's sinister intentions, she was already very guarded against her, so it was naturally impossible for her to fall into the trap. However, she also understood from Lily's words that she had to learn to be forbearing, so she pretended that she had been caught to confuse Lin Sun. Sure enough, Lin Sun saw her panicking for a loan several times, thinking that her plan had succeeded. Seeing that the end of the world was coming in less than 2 years, she still had a lot to do. In her opinion, Lin Shui had already been ruined, so naturally, attention was no longer on her. 7 years later, the apocalypse had indeed come. At this time, Lily had been practicing martial arts for 10 years. In addition to being a little wary of Lin Sun's space, Lin Sun's wood superpowers are no longer important to her. It was pitch dark outside. Although Lily was waiting for the end of the world for the first time, thinking about the hideous and disgusting-looking zombies in the plot, except that there were more of them, there were no mysterious zombies, so she was not that scared. Lin Shui also learned about the end of the world from Lily. Although she didn't know how her mother knew this, she still sat quietly next to Lily. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 103. Ah! A scream came in from outside. About a few minutes later, the door was kicked open with a bang. Lin Sun, wearing a sports suit, appeared outside the door holding a machete. Now she is 20 years old, she looks bright and cold, and the knife is still dripping with blood. She glanced at Lily and Lin Shui, raised her red lips proudly, revealing a trace of bloodthirsty. Come smile. Li Beihe, Lin Shui, my good sisters, I'm here to pick you up. There is a panic outside at the moment. According to Lin Sun's character of vengeance, she will let Lily die miserably, and she will not let Lin Shui die so easily, so this will she also had to protect Lily and her daughter, and rushed out of Lin's house together. Long Yi had already led 7 or 8 of his younger brothers outside, driving a large military truck and waiting outside. At this time, he didn't know where they got the truck from. When he saw people coming out of the Lin family, a few people started talking. The boy with the gun jumped out of the car, pointed at Lily and her daughter, and forced them to climb into the car. Lin Jianya followed behind with a look of embarrassment. He had just witnessed the beauty accompanying him turn into a zombie, and he was almost scared to death. He was also lucky enough to not be caught, so he ran away in a hurry. When I came out, I saw a car waiting outside, and I saw my daughter Lin Sun, who had always been gentle and kind, standing neatly beside the car as if she had changed. She immediately waved happily. Sunur, Dad is still here. Lin Sun laughed softly, and her red lips were as plump and charming as if they had sucked blood. My good dad, please get in the car quickly. Mother has been waiting for a long time in the plot, she was saying. Lin Jianya took Lin Jianya with him, and when he saw Wang Piazi, who had become a younger and more extraordinary young woman, he regretted it extremely, and finally arranged for his mother to marry Long Yi's father, the man nicknamed Dragon God, Long Yi. The real power behind the alliance, the last two mother and daughter married a father and son, it has become a legend. At this moment, Lin Sun was reluctant to kill Lin Jianya, because she would have much less fun. So even though she knew Lin Jianya was a trouble, she still took Lin Jianya with her. The truck was speeding all the way out of the city, and when it saw a zombie, it hit it. Not long after, you could see the truck passing by, bringing up a burst of blood mist. There was already a lot of minced meat on the back of the truck. Although Lin Shui had already known about the coming of the end of the world from Lily's mouth. But she was still shocked when she saw it, and she leaned quietly in Lily's arms. Lily felt that something was wrong at this moment. There seemed to be an inexplicable force running around in her mind, from her mind to her body and limbs, causing the internal force in her body to become restless. Lily guided her carefully. When the internal force in the body calmed down this inexplicable force. At the other end, Lin Sun had already jumped out of the car in front, opened the door and did a handsome backflip. Fell into the truck behind. Her action attracted admiration in the eyes of many soldiers holding guns, but she looked around coldly, without any expression on her face. You guys, there will be restrictions on what you eat and drink from now on. After all, useless people are not qualified to eat enough. Food should be reserved for more useful people, and the problem of pooping and peeing must be solved in the future, she said here. As if by magic, he stretched out his hand and took out several plastic bags. The light thing was thrown away by her, but it did not fly away due to the wind caused by the truck. Instead, it hit Lily's face like a heavy object. When Lin Shui saw it, she hurriedly reached out to catch it. She summoned her inner strength and easily picked up the things. Lin Sun's face became even uglier. Just pull it inside and throw it away when it reaches the right place. We won't stop the car just because you have 3 urgent needs. Like a proud princess, after saying this, she ignored Lin Jianya's livid expression and jumped back into the safe car in front. Mr. Lin Jianya used to be aloof, how could he bear such treatment? He was about to speak, but just when he stood up, there was a crisp bird call above his head, and a huge shadow fell. After landing, several soldiers pointed their submachine guns at Lin Jianya and shouted, "Calm down." As soon as he finished speaking, the bird flying overhead circled and rushed down, picked up a soldier with a gun and flew into the sky. This unexpected incident shocked everyone and they couldn't recover for a long time. After staying there for a while, many people almost went crazy. They only thought they had to guard against the zombies on the ground, but they didn't expect there was a crisis in the sky. Even though Lily felt something was wrong in her body at the moment, she couldn't help but almost laughed when she saw this situation. After the end of the world, not only most people have turned into zombies, but also animals and plants have begun to evolve and are in crisis. It's okay if others don't know about it. Lin Sun has experienced all this, and she actually let it go. Long Yi prepared a large truck, which seemed to be very safe against zombies, but the people sitting in the back had no cover over their heads. Wasn't it delivering food to the birds in the sky? I don't know if she did it on purpose, to make her mother and daughter fearful, or if she was as cold-hearted as iron and regarded human life as nothing. Sooner, please open the car door quickly and let me in. I'm Dad. Lin Jianya looked up and saw that the soldiers in the sky had been easily torn into 2 halves by the giant bird and stuffed into his mouth, and he almost went crazy with fright. The blood poured down like a downpour, and his pocket was covered with blood. Many people were covered by the blood. Lily knew from the plot that these birds would become extremely large due to the mutation. A small fly might become as big as a fat cat. It is conceivable that a sparrow could. What has become of them? The most important thing is that their bodies have become bigger. Similarly, their appetites will not be much smaller. If a person is not full, he will definitely hunt a few more times before leaving. She secretly endured the strange feeling in her body and got closer to Lin Shui. Shui, if you see something wrong later, just hide first. Lin Sun wanted to use this method to punish her, so that the people behind the car would be scared. She was not stupid and could not move while standing. Lin Sun probably thought that his mother and daughter were similar to Lin Jianya, and they both relied on each other. Only by relying on her can you survive, so use this method unscrupulously to scare yourself out of courage. In the safe car at the front, layers and layers of insurance have been added to the body with the strongest materials. Not to mention that zombies can't damage it, even the giant bird can't tear the car apart. She said quietly, sitting in the car, looking at the commotion and screaming at the back. Speakers had been installed at the back, and all the roars of the people were clearly transmitted into the car at the front. Long Yi glanced at the scene behind him and stared with a smile. Look at Lin Sun. My princess, are you satisfied? Lin Sun raised his head proudly and folded his hands on his chest. I will let them die, but not now. Please be careful. I don't want them to die too easily. Her great revenge has not yet been fully avenged. Now seeing Lin Shui, a little bitch, lying in Lily Li's arms, she was very displeased. Lin Shui in her previous life was always good at pretending to be weak in front of every man, as if who bullied her, causing that bitch to destroy her own space in the end and let her die miserably. She would never forgive these people. She wanted Lin Shui and her daughter to die miserably as a tribute to their previous lives. My own comfort. Long Yi laughed softly. He has been a proud son of heaven since he was born. He has never encountered any setbacks in his life, but he only stumbled when he met Lin Sun, a little guy, but he recognized it. He really fell in love with this little thing. He liked to see Lin Sun's mischievous expression when he was designing people. This little thing, who had always been noble and cool, seemed to have an innate sense of mystery about him, which attracted him to explore. Sometimes her flashes of sadness made him feel very distressed, and he wanted to protect her and comfort her. Naturally, those who hurt her should also die. He has already found out the identity of Li Beihe and his daughter. It's just that the man named Lin did not have a good relationship with his future mother-in-law before they got married. It would be easier to kill them than to crush an ant. It's just a dragon. Yi wanted to let Lin Sun do it herself and let her vent her anger. As for the soldiers behind the car, they will die. He has many capable men, and there is no shortage of these too. While the two men and women holding red wine glasses in the front of the car were toasting, there was a panic behind the car. Lin Jianya Ghost cried and howled as he watched the giant bird flying above his head eat the people and then circle around to rush down. Many soldiers raised their submachine guns and fired into the sky. The bullets were dead, but the birds were alive, row after row. The bullet failed to really damage the fatal part of the bird. Instead, it made the bird angry. It screamed and rushed down. In a moment, another soldier was lifted into the sky. Sooner, open the door quickly. Lin Jianya ran to the car in the direction of the front of the car like crazy, desperately reaching out and slapping the thick bulletproof glass. His face was already a little distorted at this moment, and he sat in the front. Lin Sun seemed a little bored and curled his lips. Lin Jianya's actions attracted the attention of the giant bird in the sky. For predators, the more they run away, the more they attract their attention. On the contrary, people like Lily and Lin Shui, who were sitting quietly in the corner, had a chance to escape. Of vitality. The giant bird swallowed the soldiers again and pounced directly towards Lin Jianya. Lin Sun in the car saw it clearly. He couldn't help but twitch his red lips and curse secretly. He pushed the car and climbed into the rear compartment. With a flick, a large bunch of green tree vines wrapped around the bird. There was no way she could let Lin Jianya die now. He hadn't been tortured yet, how could he die so easily? It is precisely because of this that Lin Sun came to rescue Lin Jianya. In addition, this giant bird looked ferocious and seemed to be invulnerable to bullets, but it was just an ordinary mutant bird in the early stage. It had nothing but brute strength. Other abilities are not as difficult as a first-level zombie, so naturally Lin Sun is willing to help. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 104. The soldiers were stunned when they saw Lin Sun's actions. It was only the first day of the end of the world. They didn't know the existence of superpowers yet. The one who could develop superpowers in the early stage was a young man. There are very few, and almost only the lucky ones with extraordinary talents or stronger physical fitness than ordinary people can activate supernatural powers. Therefore, Lin Sun's almost fantastic actions left many people speechless. Hit it in the eyes, Lin Sun's power had not yet entered the second level at this moment. Seeing everyone's silly expressions, she frowned and scolded. Even though it was about to enter the second level, she couldn't. The lethality of the system has increased significantly in all aspects, but she trapped the giant bird and no longer had the energy to kill it. With such a scolding, many people came to their senses and quickly raised their spears to shoot at the giant bird. The bird struck. With the concerted efforts of everyone, the bird soon let out a mournful cry and landed heavily. In the apocalypse, when there is a lack of food and clothing, the meat of mutated animals can be eaten. In the early stage, both mutated animals and zombies are weak. If you take advantage of this moment to collect more meat, you will not be hungry in the second half. In her previous life, Lin Sun relied on space to survive. She saw with her own eyes many people who were so hungry that they even ate dirt. After eating, their bodies could not digest the food, and they died in pain after eating. She had collected a lot of food. Originally, Lin Sun didn't notice this mutated bird, but if she didn't notice it, it wouldn't leave any chance of life for Lin Shui and others. She wanted to. Lin Shui knelt in front of her without self-respect and begged for food and drugs. She wanted Lin Shui to die in a miserable way. Only then can she eliminate the hatred in her heart. Thinking of this, Lin Sun picked up the body of the mutated bird. This bird was many times larger than several normal human bodies, but she dragged it up easily. Lin Jianya and the soldiers were surprised again. Lin Shui, it was also the first time I saw the so-called supernatural power. I was so frightened that my heart beat 2 times faster. I said softly, "Mom, what is that?" "That's the wood attribute." Lily curled her lips slightly. From the plot, she knew that there would be more superpowers in the later period: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, and other elemental superpowers. However, there are also special people who would derive mutated superpowers, such as ice, the thunder system, the spiritual system and the space system, as well as the dark system that kills invisible people and the light system that heals. In the plot, Lin Shui in her previous life awakened the light system, which is a very rare kind of power, and it is precisely because of this. In her previous life, Lin Shui became the darling of major bases and the target of many men. After all, apart from her beauty and personality, Lin Shui's ability to heal was already worth tens of millions more than many people. Because of this, Lin Sun was particularly jealous of her, and the 2 half-sisters eventually disliked each other. The first thing Lin Sun did after his rebirth was to destroy Lin Shui. Maybe in the plot, Lin Sun saw Lin Shui, who was as arrogant as a saint in her previous life, and finally became a bitch who was willing to go to bed with anyone even for a sip of water. After. The satisfaction in my heart is indescribable. Wood power. Lin Shui's eyes showed confusion, and then she became a little unwilling and jealous. "Why don't I have one?" When she said this, Lin Sun looked over with a sarcastic look. With a sneer, the deep-seated hatred was no longer hidden, and he showed a bloodthirsty smile towards Lin Shui. Lily felt that in addition to the internal power of the Nine Yang Manual, there seemed to be other power in her body. She saw the malice in Lin Sun's eyes and instinctively frowned. It was as if something tangible had been released, as if some mysterious power had been drained from her body. Lin Sun's face instantly turned pale, beads of sweat the size of soybeans appeared on his forehead, and the prey in his hand popped. It fell onto the truck floor, causing the truck to shake. If Long Yi hadn't used his connections to get this truck from the army, I'm afraid a hole would have been made in the floor of the truck. Psychic power. Lin Sun's face turned pale for a moment. She had just received a mental attack. Although she had never encountered a person with mental power in her previous life, she was a psychic herself, so naturally she was very interested in supernatural powers. Sensitive, there was a sharp pain in her head just now, and the thoughts in her mind seemed to be locked. The feeling was very terrifying. The most important thing was that at that moment, she felt that she could not enter the space. Lin Sun's expression after a moment of paleness, he came back to his senses and decided that he must find and kill this psychic power user as soon as possible. This is completely like her nemesis. It prevents her from entering the space. It makes her even more uneasy than taking away her powers. Whether it is the past life or this life, space has always been something she depends on for survival, and the mental power actually prevents her from entering the space. She will never tolerate the existence of anything in this world that can restrain her besides herself. After Lily saw a flash of fear in Lin Sun's eyes, she seemed to show murderous intent again. Somehow, she instinctively felt that Lin Sun's strange change just now should be related to something being released from her body. She herself had no superpowers in her previous life in the plot or after Lin Sun was reborn. Therefore, she was not sure for a while whether this thing could be called a superpower. However, Lily originally wanted to try it again, but except for raising her inner strength, she could no longer pick up the thing, and she seemed to be a little tired. The situation came and I had no choice but to give up. Lin Sun always felt as if she was being targeted by an unknown person with mental powers. She glanced around with a very ugly face. After receiving the mental attack, she couldn't keep her eyes open for a while. Her eyes felt dark and uncomfortable, and a feeling of nausea rose up in her throat. She felt flustered for a while, and her head felt like it was going to explode. The sequelae of being attacked were so serious. Lin Sun was used to relying on space. At this moment, she instinctively wanted to drink from the spring water in the space to relieve her discomfort. But unexpectedly, just as she was about to reach into the space with her mental strength, something frightened her even more. But what happened was that her mental power could no longer be put into the space, and she could no longer freely explore everything in the space as usual. At this moment, she seemed to have lost contact with the space and could not feel the space at all. The presence. This realization immediately made her panic. She took 2 staggering steps and then slipped softly to the ground. When everyone saw Lin Sun, who had a cold demeanor just now, as inviolable as a queen, it seemed as if he had lost all his strength, and fell to the ground with a pale face. They were all panicked. Long Yi, who was in front of the car, saw his sweetheart. He fell to the ground, suddenly panicked, and rolled over to his back. He carefully hugged Lin Sun into his arms, while giving everyone a cold look. Why did Suner faint? When he said this, he looked at Lin Jianya, who was closest to Lin Sun, until Lin Jianya broke into cold sweat and shook his head subconsciously. I don't know. Long Yi snorted coldly and glanced at everyone with a warning look. Just let Suner be fine, otherwise you will all die. As soon as these words were spoken, Lily and Lin Shui were stunned, but Lin Jianya and the group of soldiers felt a little uncomfortable. They are indeed loyal to the Long family, but they are not the dogs raised by the Long family. Long Yi said that he wanted to kill so many people because of a woman, and he never asked the two soldiers who were picked up by birds and eaten in the sky. Inevitably makes people feel chilling. What is your relationship with my daughter? Lin Jianya was also a little dissatisfied. Anyone who saw his daughter being hugged and hugged by other men would feel uncomfortable. What's more, Lin Jianya didn't know who Long Yi was. Identity: his daughter has been outstanding since she was a child, and she will never marry an ordinary man. No matter if it is a stable world or at this moment, as soon as he said the words, Long Yi looked at him fiercely and left him coldly. He said, "Sun's man." He hugged Lin Sun and jumped into the front of the car again. No matter how hard Lin Jianya slapped the glass, there was no more sound. Everyone had been hungry all day, and when it was almost dark after leaving the city gate, the car stopped at a small farmyard. There was no one inside, and the surroundings were deserted. For a moment, it gave people a very lonely feeling. Lin Sun hadn't woken up yet, and was held by Long Yi in his arms. After getting off the car, Lin Jianya had been making trouble all day, and he was already hungry. When he got off the car, he didn't even have the strength, so he just stretched out his hand towards Lin Shui. "Xiaoxiu, give me a hand." Although Lin Shui also hated Lin Jianya for letting down his mother, seeing his pitiful look, she still couldn't help but reach out and give him a hand. Although Lily and her daughter have been hungry all day, they are both martial arts practitioners. It is not like Lin Jianya, who is strong on the outside but has been emptied by women on the inside. Now that she is vulnerable, Lin Shui easily kills Lin Jianya. Got out of the car, and Lin Jiake stretched out his hand to his daughter. "Do you have anything to eat there? I've been hungry all day." Hearing this, Lily couldn't help but sneered, "You haven't seen Xiaox, you haven't eaten anything all day? What's the fuss about?" Not only did the two mother and daughter not eat, they didn't even drink a drop of water. Although Lin Shui practiced, he has mastered martial arts, but people are like iron, rice and steel. If they don't eat even one meal, they will feel hungry. Everyone is the same. Lin Jianya, a grown man, can't compare to a woman. Now he is asking his daughter for food. Lin Jianya was already in a bad mood. He was originally the superior chairman of the Lin family group, but now he was repeatedly ignored. Now even Lily dared to contradict him, which made him unable to help but vent his anger. "Nothing to eat? If there's nothing to eat, go find it. I'm still hungry." After saying this, he turned to the soldiers and said, "Do you have anything to eat? I have money, I'll give you money." To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 105. A soldier glanced at him with a cold expression, and pointed the muzzle of the spear in his hand at Lin Jianya. Everyone had seen the power of this gun along the way. Now that the black muzzle was pointing at Lin Jianya's eyes widened. His legs began to tremble, and he raised his hands spinelessly. "No, no, you fall out so quickly. I'm Lin Sun's father." When the soldiers heard that he was Lin Sun's father, they remembered Lin Sun's great strength, and their expressions softened. "Wait for now, the Dragon King has his own arrangements." Hearing this painful name, Lily couldn't help but twitch her face. The strange strength in her body seemed to have softened a lot along the way. Now when she heard the soldiers asking for food, her eyes couldn't help but roll. "Why don't I go find some food with my daughter first, and don't bother everyone?" she asked tentatively. According to ordinary people's eyes, two weak-looking women would definitely be a burden along the way, so she had to take the initiative to offer normal people would agree to find food without bothering them. But unexpectedly, these soldiers not only did not agree, but instead snorted, "Be more honest, or I will kill you on the spot." As soon as she said these words, Lily knew that Lin Sun must have discussed with Long Yi and the others to guard them here, so that she would frighten the mother and daughter before they were dealt with by her. It was a good idea. "Okay," Lily smiled slightly, and just about to speak, Lin Jianya said impatiently, "Let them go, I'm hungry, I will tell sooner or later, she is my daughter, why not will you listen to me?" As soon as he finished speaking, he waved to Lily and the others, "Go quickly." At this point, a good idea came to Lily's mind. She also wanted to conduct another experiment on Lin Sun, so she originally planned to separate from the group of people halfway, and then come back and kill Lin Sun secretly. Naturally, she changed her mind. She ignored Lin Jianya's need to let her mother. The two women's request to go find food was just a wink with their daughter, and then they said to the unmoved soldiers, "Since we can't go looking for food, we want to go to the toilet." It was human nature to hold it in for a whole day. After all, they had endured it all day during the day. Several soldiers hesitated. Everyone simply spread out and guarded the small courtyard without leaking, and then waved to Lily, "Go ahead." Lin Jianya was still a little dissatisfied. Lily had already taken her daughter to find the toilet. There was an empty pigsty at the back of the small courtyard, and the toilet was also inside. As soon as the two mother and daughter walked in, a wild beast-like howl came out. Lily's pupils shrank, and a zombie with a pale complexion, bloodshot eyes, and deathly red eyes, drooling like lightning, rushed towards them. "Out! I don't know how long it has been hiding here, but it looks a little different from ordinary zombies." When it rushed out, it paused next to Lily. It had no intention of attacking her, but instead stretched out its hand towards Lin Shui. "Although I had heard my mother talk about the problems that would happen after the end of the world, I also saw a lot of zombies in the car all day today, but this was the first time that I was so close." Lin Shui was so frightened that her face turned pale and she was already standing still. In place. Lily clenched her hands into fists and used her inner strength. She punched the head of the zombie who was unprepared for her with a fierce punch, piercing the head with one punch. She encountered a slippery object in her hand, held it in her palm and took it out. She held back her nausea and threw it away. "Shake off. Don't be afraid." She just killed a zombie's head with an understatement. This action shocked Lin Shui. She really forgot to be afraid. When she saw the zombie fell to the ground with a thud, Lily looked disgusted. With such a look, Lin Shui came back to her senses. There was no place to wash hands around, and now there was no water. Lily had no choice but to wipe her hands with the clothes worn by the zombies and spread her hands. "What is this?" As soon as Lin Shui asked, Long Yi came out of the room with his hands in his pockets. Before he could look over, Lily kicked the zombies on the ground and flew out. "What happened?" Long Yi was a little impatient. His sweetheart was unconscious for unknown reasons, which made him a little upset and worried. After all their food was in Lin Sun's hands. If Lin Sun faints, no matter how powerful he is, it will not be easy to get food again. More importantly, Lin Sun was his lover, and he had always been extremely strong, but this time he passed out. He didn't know why, but Long Yi felt really distressed. Lily curled her lips and glanced around. Maybe there are zombies somewhere. She opened her eyes and told lies, which made Lin Shui's eyes widen. She was both funny and nervous. Long Yi appeared out of nowhere. "It looks very dangerous, I'm afraid it's hard to fool." But to Lin Shui's surprise, Long Yi checked around and found that there was nothing strange at all. Although he was suspicious, he couldn't find any evidence, so he had to forget it and nodded. "Keep a close eye. If you find a zombie, don't disturb my Suner by roaring and screaming. Otherwise, you will die." After leaving these harsh words, Long Yi turned around and went in again. Lin Shui had a complicated look on her face and sighed, "I thought he should be very smart, but I didn't expect him to be so stupid." Lily suppressed a smile and nodded. No one stipulates that people who look shrewd must be shrewd. After saying this, she spread her hands and saw the beautiful pink crystal inside. Lily immediately recognized that this was the second-level crystal core, and couldn't help but feel a little surprised. There is a second-level zombie here. Seeing that Lin Shui didn't understand, he explained to her that crystal cores will almost become a popular commodity currency in major bases in the later period. They can be used like money in a safe society. After the end of the world, money will become a pile of waste paper. The only thing that became popular was crystal nuclei useful for supernatural powers. This thing can be exchanged for food, women, and various other things. However, Lily Lee in the plot never had the chance to have it again. And later, in order to get the crystal core in exchange for drugs, Lin Shui moved between men, and finally became more and more low-level, and was cooked and shared. This thing can improve superpowers. You see, the green vines Lin Sun released in his hand today are superpowers. Lily finished explaining to Lin Shui, and then looked at her and carefully stretched out her hand. Mom, is this it? In the darkness, a small ball of goose yellow warm light appeared in her hand. Just getting closer made people feel waves of warmth. Lily didn't expect Lin Shui to develop superpowers so early, but she thought that if Lin Sun hadn't disrupted the situation later in the plot, she would have also developed healing superpowers. Now that she saw it with her own eyes, she still felt a little nervous. Surprised, he couldn't help but take a closer look before hesitating. That should be it. This crystal core should be used to upgrade superpowers. Lily held the crystal core in her hand, and the crystal core in her hand poured into her body, turned into energy and began to swim in her body. Lily was startled at first, but then she found that there was no discomfort in her body. She used her internal energy and found nothing strange, but another mysterious energy in her body was more powerful. She was sure that he must have a superpower, but this superpower is not one of the 5 major attributes. Instead, he seems to have some restraint on Lin Sun. Lily thought for a while but couldn't think of a reason, so she simply gave up. Xiaoxiu, since you already have superpowers, the most important thing now is that we have to upgrade first. Lily glanced at Lin Shui and explained to her, if you are lucky, a crystal core like the one just now can be used in it was found in the mind of the zombie that although you are very skilled in the apocalypse, it would be good if you have one more ability to save your life. 2 fists are hard to beat with 4 hands, not to mention that Long Yi's people also carry guns. Lin Shui's superpower will cause from now on, she will become everyone's darling. However, the premise is that her own strength must reach a certain level. First, she no longer has to be regarded as a subordinate before she can talk about freedom. Lin Shui nodded, and the 2 of them sneaked out of the farmyard at night and started looking for zombies along the way. There were not many zombies in the wilderness, but some zombie rats and infected small animals were not. Young master, after one night, the 2 of them cooperated very well. Not only they hid 4 or 5 crystal cores, Lin Shui's skills were more skillful than before. As expected, she herself has light powers. Once she is injured, she can only use her powers. As soon as she covered her body, she would be back to her original state in no time. This not only improved her martial arts, but also made her superpowers better and better. What Lily felt a little strange at the moment was that she found that these zombies did not attack her at all, and seemed to be a little afraid of her. Lin Shui was injured several times throughout the night, and her superpowers gradually became too much. When she could only rest, Lily discovered that these zombies did not touch her at all. Whenever she approached the zombies, they would not bite her, but would instinctively avoid her. Lily tried several times, and after she was sure that she would not be attacked by the zombies, she acted like a tiger in a crowd. Took Lin Shui directly back to the city. The 2 of them practiced Qigong and ran back and forth into the city one night, bringing some food and picking up 2 changes of clothes. They returned to the farmyard in the early morning and rested their minds for a while. It was getting light. Lin Sun just woke up in the early morning. After Lily noticed that she had woken up, she gave her another mental attack. Repeatedly, when everyone was approaching the next base, Lin Sun had much less time to wake up. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the strength of Lily and Lin Shui was greatly improved. By the time they arrived at the next temporary base, Lily could almost launch 3 mental attacks that made Lin Sun sleepy and uncomfortable. Lin Shui's healing skills could also be said to be climbed a ladder. In the plot, Lin Sun became the object of admiration so quickly because she knew many things that others didn't know in the early stages, and she was the first to upgrade her powers to level 3 in just half a year. It is said that she was the first person among several bases, which established her strong position, so she later became a myth. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan Erwr. Chapter 106. But now, after others have gradually discovered the secret of the superpower, she has been kept in a comatose state by Lily's attacks, so naturally it is impossible to upgrade her superpower. After Lin Sun fell asleep on and off for more than 3 months, Long Yi, who looked glamorous, gradually became a little irritable. It was not easy to take care of someone in the peaceful and prosperous times, let alone in this apocalypse. Every day Lin Sun fell asleep. Not only did he have to wash and feed her, but he also had to wait on her to urinate and defecate. This made Long Yi, who was used to being aloof and waited on, a little unbearable. It was still fresh in the first 2 days, but it took a long time. Who can bear it? Just like the route that Lin Sun had discussed with Long Yi in advance, everyone was going directly to the base in Kyoto to meet up. But now they were halfway through the journey. Not only did Long Yi have special powers along the way, but even several soldiers were inspired to do so. After developing supernatural powers, some people had already raised their powers to the peak level. Lin Sun hadn't woken up yet. "Zhizi, are sooner awake?" Lin Jianya would ask Wang Piazi through the glass at the back of the truck every day. His hair was now disheveled and he was squatting behind the truck with a shaggy beard. He no longer looked as high-spirited as before. Long Yi simply didn't. If you don't buy his account, the food and drink given to him every day are pitiful. He can't fill his stomach at all. The most he can say is that he will starve to death. Now no one hopes that Lin Sun wakes up more than Lin Jianya. He seeing Wang Piazi sitting in front of the truck. Long Yi had asked someone to pick her up more than 2 months ago. She looked much more beautiful and more attractive than before, with a mysterious temperament added to her body. In this post-apocalyptic world, he saw that the wife he used to dislike had become like this. Recently, Lily and her daughter were acting at night. He slept during the day, so Lin Jianya naturally became bolder when he saw Wang Piazi, and wanted to say a few love words to her from time to time to arouse her love for him. Wang Piazi glanced at Lin Jianya with some boredom. She was holding the strangely pale Lin Sun in her arms. She was very worried. She didn't know the reason for her daughter's inexplicable lethargy. Now the world is in chaos and she can't see the problem. Later, Lin Jianya made a noise that made her upset. She simply took the loudspeaker on the side and shouted to Lily behind her. "Miss Li, please take care of your own man and don't let him disturb our mother and daughter again." Lily's abilities have increased very quickly recently. I wonder if it's because she has a good foundation. It's more effective to use internal power to run her abilities. In addition, the zombies seem to be afraid of her and will not hurt her at all, so collecting crystal cores is as easy as cutting straw. Now that she has reached the middle of level 3, Lily has also figured out at this time that she should be one of the few in the plot. He has few spiritual powers, and he knows how to attack Lin Sun every day. I have some experience on how to make her sleep. Lin Shui is about to reach level 3 recently. The treatment effect became much better each time, and she had certain attack skills. She was also ready to let Lin Sun wake up. The hatred between the two sides should finally come to an end. Lily ignored Wang Piazi's shouts. She just tried her best to adjust the inner energy in her body and be in the best condition to meet the physical strength of collecting crystal nuclei at night. Her indifferent attitude seemed to Wang Piazi as if she was arrogant and looked down on herself, and she couldn't help but feel even more angry. Miss Li, since you have snatched Lin Jianya, you should cherish it. What's going on now? Long Yi had been in a bad mood recently. When he saw Lily being so arrogant, he snorted coldly, opened the car door and turned out. Pointing at Lily, he said coldly, "My mother-in-law is calling you, didn't you hear her? Whoever has the strongest fist is the boss." Lily saw the murderous intent flashing through Long Yi's eyes. He probably felt that it would be a burden to take him and others with him. Lin Sun hadn't woken up yet, so he had the idea of getting rid of his mother and daughter. Lily stood up with a smile. She had recently changed into sportswear that facilitated movement. Unfortunately, Long Yi and others did not notice the changes in her and Lin Shui. "I didn't hear that, Mr. Long, do you have any objections?" Lily's smiling words completely angered Long Yi. He spent so much manpower and material resources to take the two mothers and daughters away, and sometimes even distributed food to them, wasting food in the forest. Even if Sun didn't wake up and couldn't bring out the food, it was already very difficult for him. He also had to bring such a group of wasting food. Long Yi felt murderous intention in his heart. He narrowed his eyes and a ball of purple appeared in his hand. Thunder and lightning came and made a buzzing sound. Long Yi was worthy of being the man who followed Lin Sun later. He inspired powerful and rare thunder powers, which were very lethal. But before he could take action, the smile on Lily's face deepened. Before Long Yi could, the thunder and lightning in his hand blasted out, and there was a sudden sharp pain in his head. The lightning in his hand flashed and disappeared without a trace. He knelt on the ground, hugged his head and cried out in pain. Are you a superpower? It has been 4 months since the end of the world, and more superpowers have appeared gradually." When Long Yi finished shouting this in fear, everyone looked at him in disbelief. "On Lily. Shoot her to death." Once it was confirmed that Lily was a superpower, Long Yi ordered someone to shoot without hesitation. Lily blocked Lin Shui and whispered, "Be careful, hide yourself, and don't worry about me now." Lin Shui's superpower is almost at the 3rd level. As long as the injury he suffers is not fatal, even if he is hit by a gun and still has a breath, Lin Shui can save himself. Taking advantage of the time when her 3rd level superpower could save her own wounds, it was enough for Lily to clean up this group of people. The submachine gun kept pouring out bullets, and Lily rushed towards the soldier closest to her like a ghost. Although she had martial arts skills, the power of the gun should not be underestimated. She would still be injured when it hit her body. Fortunately, Lin Shui on the side paid attention to her from time to time. When he saw that Lily was injured, he treated her. The two mother and daughter cooperated well, and soon the soldiers with guns were knocked down. Long Yi's eyes widened and he watched Lily throw all the guns aside. The soldiers raised by the Long family had now collapsed into a pile. Although he was a little surprised by the behavior of this woman who he had not noticed before. Strength, but he was even more surprised that Lin Shui's superpower was actually a healing one. Although Long Yi had an unusual interest in Lin Sun, when he saw Lin Shui, he couldn't help but feel a little hot in his heart. "Are you from the healing department?" Lin Shui glanced at him and ignored him. Instead, she asked Lily, "Mom, what should I do now?" "Lin Sun has slept long enough, it's time to get up." Lily flicked her wrist and glanced at Wang Piazi, who was sitting in front of the car in shock. She pursed her lips. Lin Sun, who was originally lying in Wang Piazi's arms, calmed down. Su opened his eyes. After waking up, Lin Sun found that everything seemed to be bad for him. Li Beihe and Lin Shui, 2 bitches, have also awakened their superpowers. More than 3 months have passed since the end of the world. After many people have discovered the secret of the crystal core, she turns out to be only a 1st level superpower. She, instead of being at the forefront of the times like in the plot, she has fallen behind. What's more serious is that her space seems to have been greatly affected and she cannot open it at all in a short period of time. What made her uncomfortable was that Long Yi, who had been devoted to her all these years, seemed to have changed. Although he still valued her, Lin Sun was keenly aware of the look he had on Lin Shui, with joy, with desire, and a bit of determination to win. Every time Lin Sun saw this scene, he seemed to remember the scene when his beloved fiancée looked at Lin Shui in his previous life. Now the incident happened again, although Lin Sun was reborn. After she came back, she warned herself not to put her feelings on men anymore, but it was easier said than done. She had always controlled herself not to like Long Yi too much. After all, the lessons from her previous life told her that men are despicable animals and are too easy to get. I don't cherish it anymore. She had always treated Long Yi with such aloofness, seeing him crazy for her, seeing him angry for her, but now everything seems to have changed. Although he still likes her, he doesn't seem to value her as much as before. Lin Sun, after being awake for 2 days, he had very little time to look at himself. Instead, most of his eyes fell on Lin Shui, every one of them. "Brother Yi, what happened while I was sleeping?" Lin Sun couldn't bear to ask Long Yi. Her tone made Long Yi feel very uncomfortable. In the past, Lin Sun herself had the strength, so she used there is a sense of coldness and glamour in speaking in this tone, but now that she has not entered the space for almost 4 months and can no longer drink the magical spring water in the space, her skin color is not as smooth and fair as before, but it shows a bit of, after the beauty was reduced a bit, her temperament naturally changed. She was only at the beginning of the superpower. From Long Yi's point of view, Lin Sun was just lucky enough to activate the superpower before the end of the world. There was no such thing as it was magical in his own imagination, and Lin Sun's sense of mystery disappeared a lot in his heart. Now that she is not strong enough, she still shows such a condescending look. Long Yi is a little impatient, let your mother tell you. After he said this, he waved to Lin Shui who was behind him. "Shui, do you want to sit in the front?" Lin Shui's superpower gave Long Yi a feeling of heat. It was from the healing system. In the apocalypse, everyone knew what was most lacking. Besides food, there was a shortage of medicine. There was a person from the healing system here. It's like having an extra life around him, which naturally makes him feel that Lin Shui is very precious. If Lin Shui and Lily don't have much strength, he can keep Lin Sueqiang by his side as a follower, but now Lily's strength is no longer. This made Long Yi a little scared, so naturally he no longer dared to treat them like servants, and instead wanted to recruit them as partners. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 107. Brother Yi, what do you mean? Lin Sun's face turned ugly as soon as he heard Long Yi's words. You know she is my enemy. Seeing that she was unhappy, Long Yi reluctantly endured the impatience in his heart and comforted him. Don't make trouble, Lin Shui has special powers and is of great use to me. It is useful for me to keep her here. Are you jealous? Yi Lingsun was so arrogant that it was impossible for her to admit that she was jealous of Lin Shui. But the thought of Lin Shui having special powers made her heart agitate, and she warned. You also know what kind of thing she is. She has been destroyed a long time ago. In Lin Sun's view, Lin Shui had been gang raped and taken drugs. She knew Long Yi's proud character, so she gave him a warning. Long Yi was very dissatisfied with her attitude. After the end of the world, even if he is as noble as he is, he needs to do everything by himself. Naturally, his life is not as free and unrestrained as before. Love is naturally out of the question when he may not even be able to save his life. Lin Sun, who had always been calm, also started to get jealous, which inevitably made Long Yi feel a little boring. Just thinking that Lin Shui was indeed not a virgin anymore, he showed some hesitation on his face. I thought my words could stop Long Yi from drinking, but with the powerful strength displayed by Lin Shui and Lily, Long Yi was still moved. No man would be able to hold back his ambition in the apocalypse, especially him. If he has such two powerful people as helpers. It is not a dream to build a base and become the overlord of a party in the future. Lin Xuan, who seemed capable in the past, can no longer help him. The grain he spent a lot of money to purchase was lost to her. Locked in the space, Lin Xuan can't even open the space now. Long Yi's dissatisfaction with her naturally increased from time to time. After Lin Xuan tried again and couldn't open the space, Long Yi became completely angry. Where's the food? Everyone is waiting to open their mouths now. Please take out the food quickly. At this moment, everyone was stopping at a roadside to camp, and everything was prepared. Fortunately, these commonly used items were not included in Lin Xuan's space. Otherwise, everyone would just sit around the woods all night. The fire had already been lit, and the water superpower filled the large pot picked up on the road with water. The water was now boiling. Everything was ready, just waiting for the rice to be put into the pot, but Lin Xuan was in trouble. Long Yi couldn't hold it back and shouted at her, "You said you had space powers at first, but why are you fighting now? Not open. Everyone is waiting to open their mouths to eat. In the last days there will be no water or food." Long Yi could no longer maintain his noble demeanor and became extremely embarrassed. He had tasted Lin Xuan's space water before and saw her conjuring something out of thin air. He was convinced because he liked her. Unexpectedly, Lin Xuan had tricked him now. No matter how good his temper was, he couldn't bear it anymore. His biggest secret was revealed by Long Yi like this, after being killed by his fiancée in his previous life. Lin Xuan was particularly afraid that her biggest reliance would be discovered by others. She had no choice but to tell Long Yi the secret. She needed to cooperate with Long Yi and get a weapon, so she used space to win his trust. Who would have thought that now space it couldn't be opened? After he told Long Yi about the space, he actually shouted out. For a moment, Lin Xuan felt as if he had been stripped clean and thrown into the sun. She glanced at Lily and Lin Shui with some vigilance, and stared at Long Yi with cold eyes. "What do you think I'm doing?" Long Yi now ordered people to find food. While pulling Lin Xuan into the tent, he begged for mercy in a low voice, "Xuan, I was wrong, I was just too anxious." Lin Xuan pursed her lips and said nothing. In the past, her indifference and arrogance would make Long Yi give in. There was not a single cold war between the two that Long Yi could stand against her. Every time, Long Yi took the initiative to beg for mercy, but this time the situation was different. Lin Xuan had no strength now, and he still had to put on such a posture, not to mention that the person who did the wrong thing was not him at all. Long Yi couldn't help but get a little angry, and started to yell at Lin Xuan with a sneer. He started to move his hands and feet. "What are you going to do?" Lin Xuan was shocked. She had known Long Yi for many years, but she had always kept herself clean. Because of this, she was not eaten by Long Yi. What she couldn't get was always the best. Long Yi's feelings for her are getting deeper and deeper, and he respects her more and more in his heart. He didn't expect that he would touch her now. Lin Xuan can't enter the space anymore. Her powers are no match for Long Yi. Now she was only at the first level of supernatural powers, but Long Yi had already reached the second level with the help of her subordinates. She was easily subdued by Long Yi, and tears rolled down her eyes. She wanted to curse angrily on her lips, but soon there is no gap. After Lily heard the noise coming from the tent, she couldn't help but laugh. She had done so many missions, and even though she still felt a little uncomfortable hearing this kind of thing, it didn't make her so embarrassed that she turned around and ran away. Unexpectedly, Lin Xuan, who became arrogant later in the plot, was just because of lethargy. It took a few months for her to end up like this. She calculated that Lin Shui would be gang raped, but now the proud woman was also forcibly obtained by Long Yi. This may be a major blow to Lin Sun, especially after being reborn. One can imagine the pain in her heart. Unexpectedly, the first round of revenge was actually done by Long Yi, who was deeply in love with Lin Sun in the plot. It was really surprising and very refreshing at the same time. Long Yi stayed in the tent for more than an hour. He had never gotten Lin Sun before and was reluctant to force her. He also liked to see her proud look, but when the end of the world came, he was already under great pressure. In addition, he had been there for several months. Lin Sun was not able to get close to women, and he couldn't stand it in front of him. Naturally, he felt angry. What's more, Lin Sun's strength was not as good as before, and he didn't know when the space would be opened. This little girl used to when there is space, he always runs into the space when he wants to touch it. Now he has caught the opportunity. The raw female body tasted good, and since this was the goddess he had longed for before, Long Yi naturally felt much more relaxed. After he was done, he put on his clothes and coaxed Lin Sun to sleep for a while he came out. Tent. He didn't know that after he left the tent, Lin Sun's resentful eyes almost shot through his back. Under this powerful stimulation, the space that she had been blocked by Lily's mental power suddenly had a trace of contact with her. Amidst her overwhelming resentment, the connection with the space became stronger and stronger. Lin Sun was excited and delighted. The whole figure twisted and disappeared into the tent. Lily, who was sitting by the fire outside, turned her face in the direction of the tent keenly. She just noticed a trace of mental fluctuations there. Ever since she developed her mental power, it really made her feel refreshed. She can feel small mental fluctuations. If the improvement of her internal power after practicing martial arts in the past has sharpened her five senses, now the development of her mental power is even more powerful. In addition to the internal power martial arts that can attack people's body, the spirit the force can also destroy the human soul. What's wrong? Long Yi, who had just come out of the tent, was a little uncomfortable when he saw Lily staring at the tent where he and Lin Sun were doing business. No matter how thick-skinned he was, he felt a little embarrassed now. Lily got up and just asked, she felt the presence of someone missing in the tent. Lin Sun is missing. What? He clearly left Lin Sun in the tent when he came out. Why did she disappear now? Long Yi looked a little surprised and uncertain, but after seeing this woman's strength during his time with Lily, he didn't dare to underestimate her like before. He quickly straightened his belt and rushed into the tent. Sure enough, he saw Lin Sun gone. Could it be that her space has opened up? Lin Shui asked, and Long Yi's pupils suddenly shrank. In the past, he liked Lin Sun, so he exchanged most of his assets for food and put them in Lin Sun's space. But now the two of them are having trouble like this. Judging from that woman's character of retribution, it would not be easy for her in the first place. Believe it or not, once he hurts her this time, he will probably become an enemy in her mind, and she will definitely want revenge. Thinking of this, a vicious murderous intention flashed in Long Yi's eyes. He was originally a gangster figure, and it was normal for him to fall out of favor faster than turning the pages of a book. Now if Lin Sun really reopens the space, either she had pretended that the space could not be opened before, or she had opened the space due to some unknown stimulus. From now on, in addition to killing Lily and her daughter, she would definitely seek revenge on her again. The assumption that Lin Sun pretended to be unable to open the space was quickly abandoned by Long Yi. He knew Lin Sun as a person. If she could open the space, she must have been hiding before. Then there must be some reason why she couldn't open the space. So now that I open it, I will definitely hate myself to the core. Aunt Li, I want to cooperate with you. Long Yi's heart couldn't help but move when he thought of this. He had known Lin Sun for many years and knew the mystery of her space. She could come in and out at will, and she could kill people invisible. The key was the gun couldn't deal with her yet. Such an elusive enemy was too uncomfortable and made people feel like they had a lump in their throats. Long Yi thought of the last time he wanted to kill Lily. At that time, he thought her skills were her powers. Now, thinking that he might be wrong, he thought about his severe headache and Lin Sun's inexplicable lethargy for more than 3 months, and grinned, let's deal with Lin Sun together. Lin Shui was still young, so her eyes widened when she heard this. She also practiced martial arts, so she naturally knew what happened in the tent just a moment ago. She didn't expect that Long Yi would turn against him and kill someone. Shocked, the way he looked at Long Yi changed. If Long Yi were still talking about any relationship, Lily would probably look down on him. Unexpectedly, this man was quick to make a decision. He knew what to do as soon as he heard that Lin Sun's space was opened. Lily thought more highly of Long Yi. A person like this in the last days may seem ruthless, but in fact he is the one who lives the longest, because he can judge the situation and quickly find a way to survive. This is a person who is born to be a leader. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 108. How do you want to cooperate? Lily glanced at Wang Piazi on the other side of the fire. Lin Jianya was driving her crazy at the moment. Neither of them noticed the scene here. Lily smiled again, Long Yake said gloomily. Lin Sun's space opened and she entered. I think her previous lethargy had something to do with you, Aunt Li, right? You should be a person with mental powers. When Long Yi said this himself, he couldn't help but feel they all shuddered. If this is the case, Lily has powerful skills for some reason. There are more than a dozen of the special forces raised by her Long family. She handed over the submachine gun in a few seconds. She is just a woman. Lin Sun used to think she is a woman who only loves vanity. She may have misjudged her. Not only is she powerful, but she also has supernatural powers. Lin Sun wants to take revenge, but this time it will be really difficult. When Lily heard what Long Yi said, she didn't deny it. So what? Do you want to avenge her? Long Yi perked up, shook his head, and wanted to sit closer to Lily, but Lin Shui picked up a branch and slapped him twice, sit further away. Aunt Li just needs to restrict her space so that she can't go in. Long Yi smiled at Lin Shui, and then discussed with Lily again, as long as she has no space, she is a waste. It's just a superpower, it can kill her in a minute. If there is room, it will be troublesome, it is so elusive, everyone is worried. At this moment, Lin Sun had already entered the space, and Lily couldn't deal with her. Hearing Long Yi's words, he nodded, I can indeed ban her from entering the space, but it wouldn't be fun if she was killed all at once. How she dealt with our mother and daughter, how I want to deal with her. Long Yi didn't understand what he said. Lin Sun probably thought that he wanted to deal with Lily in secret before, but somehow Lily found out about it. Lin Sun thought that she was seeking revenge in the dark, but unexpectedly she was plotting against her. The target has already set his sights on her. Long Yi wanted to laugh, but he held it back again and again, and suddenly asked, if Aunt Li said this, then when Shui is 15. He's actually quite thick-skinned. Lily glanced at him with a half-smile. Mujiajia took the place. Good trick. Long Yi clapped his hands, becoming more and more determined to form an alliance with Lily and her daughter. At this moment, it seemed that Lin Sun was still too young after all. He didn't get it before. He thought she was so mysterious. Touching, now once you get her. After becoming enemies with her again, her space was no longer so wonderful. People with higher status were afraid of death, and Long Yi was naturally afraid too. He had always liked Lin Sun before, but now his life was threatened. Down. What he wants to do is definitely eliminate the threat. The night passed like this, and Long Yi was deeply afraid that Lin Sun would suddenly appear for him. Although he was guarded and had superpowers, Lin Sun's space was so magical and he was afraid of death, so he shamelessly insisted on squeezing in with Lily and her daughter. When Lily's face dropped, he stayed in the car. Outside, as long as you can't see him, that's fine. Lily knew that he was scared to death, and she could temporarily use him at this moment. So it was up to him. Wang Piazi and Lin Jianya didn't notice anything strange about this. When it dawned the next day, everyone had just packed their things and loaded them into the truck. At this moment, Long Yi didn't dare to hide in the car anymore, and was about to move a stool with Lily. The mother and daughter were sitting in the back of the truck. Everyone was just getting ready to go on the road when Lin Sun, who was covered in moisture, appeared. Her whole body seemed to be covered with a layer of black air. Her hair was a little damp. She had obviously just washed her hair. Wang Piazi saw her daughter, eyes couldn't help but light up. "Sunur, you kid, why did you just show up now?" Wang Piazi had known about Lin Sun's space for a long time, and also knew that her daughter would disappear from time to time, but Lin Sun's disappearance last night was too long. As soon as she got the space, she couldn't wait to stay in it and didn't want to come out. Especially after she got the space and almost lost it inexplicably, she was hurt outside, so she wanted to hide in the space all the time, just because she was afraid that these people would leave and leave her alone. People, her mother is still with the beast Long Yi, and her enemies are still alive. Lin Sun forced himself to come out, and stared at Long Yi, Lily, and Lin Shui with a pair of cold eyes. "Don't worry, Mom. I'm fine. My enemies are not dead. How could I be willing to die?" After she finished speaking, she smiled sinisterly. The mark that Long Yi left on her body yesterday has now disappeared. After one night, her yellowish skin has also disappeared. Instead, her skin has become smooth and tender. Both Lily, her daughter, and Long Yi have seen such obvious changes. When the truck arrived, the others seemed not to notice it. They couldn't help but exchange strange looks. When the truck was about to drive, except for Long Yi, Lin Sun actually refused to sit in the front. She stood beside Long Yi. Yi's side made Long Yi's hair stand on end. There is still more than a month left to travel to Beijing. The journey has to pass through a provincial capital. Originally, this provincial capital was very huge, so there were an astonishing number of zombies inside. If Lin Sun didn't take out the food in his space, so would everyone. She wanted to go to the city to find food. Lin Sun insisted on taking this road to the capital. At that time, Long Yi naturally obeyed her words. Now they have broken up, but they have already come here. Long Yi asked his father again, meeting him in Beijing. He naturally had to bite the bullet and go on. The previously bustling city was filled with dead silence, as if there was an echo after shouting. The sound of the car alerted the zombies scattered everywhere. Gradually, zombies were following behind the truck. From the beginning, there were only 4 or 5. After being killed by soldiers with guns, the number of them continued to increase. Lin Sun showed a ferocious smile. After the truck entered the city, he was chased by a large group of zombies. It had been nearly 5 months since the apocalypse began, and many zombies had already disappeared. The upgrade began, and several mutant zombies appeared in the pile of zombies. They were surprisingly powerful and some were extremely fast. Suddenly Lin Sun disappeared into the space. While everyone was in shock and confusion, she suddenly appeared next to Lin Shui and Lily. Lily had already been on guard against her when she entered the space. Now she saw her coming out and was about to take action when Lin Sun grabbed her hand and pushed her towards the pile of zombies. "Go to hell, Lily Lee, you deserve to die from the zombies too." As soon as Long Yi saw this scene, he was shocked and angry. Lily was now his life-saving talisman. He knew that he had to protect Lily without Lily saying anything, otherwise the character of Yilin Sun, a woman, would have killed her last moment. After Lily, it was time for him and Lin Shui to die in the next moment. Long Yi was in a panic when he saw a smile on the corner of Lin Shui's mouth. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. The electric talisman in his hand flashed twice and then disappeared from his palm. Inside, Lily's body landed lightly on the ground, and then she turned over in the air before landing firmly. To everyone's surprise, when the zombies saw Lily falling, they all moved away like headless flies with a boom sound, as if they had seen some terrible natural enemy. This scene was like it was a scene where zombies fell into the crowd and the crowd fled like crazy, but now the situation was reversed, giving people an inexplicable sense of joy. What's going on? Lin Sun was going crazy. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would definitely not believe it if someone told her this. Can you believe that there are zombies that eat people and are afraid of people? Now everywhere Lily walked, zombies began to hide like crazy. Some of the ones who couldn't hide actually got under the car. Lily deliberately walked to a power zombie. Because the zombie awakened power instead of strength, so he didn't run very fast, but his gray face showed a humanized look of fear. Seeing Lily was like seeing something scary. How's it going? Have you had enough fun? Lily asked Lin Sun. Lin Sun looked at the scene in disbelief and shook his head. Impossible. While she was talking, a dagger suddenly appeared in her hand, and she cut her wrist open. The smell of blood made the zombies who had just escaped start to move again, but they were afraid of Lily at the moment and did not dare to come over. Go to hell. Another plastic bag suddenly appeared in Lin Sun's hand. He reluctantly filled it with his own blood and threw it towards Lily. The blood bag happened to be caught by Lily. Lin Sun used an extremely thin small bag. The bag, dropped and squeezed, quickly broke into pieces, and blood flowed all over Lily's hands. The zombies smelled the breath and drooled. Lily walked towards the zombie closest to her, but the zombie saw when she got there, she didn't even want the delicious food, turned around and started running desperately. Lily suppressed a laugh, raised her breath, and used Qinggong to fly back to the car. She waved her hand. Long Yi had already taken out a bottle of mineral water and handed it to Lily. Aunt Li, wash your hands. Seeing the scene where the zombies were actually afraid of Lily, everyone was greatly shocked. Lin Jianya's eyes when he looked at Lily were about to burst into flames. He stared at Lily non-stop. For a while it seems that some are afraid to step forward. I washed my hands with the water poured out by Long Yi. At this moment, the mineral water in the apocalypse is so precious. It may cost people one's life to exchange for a bottle of water. But seeing how powerful Lily was just now, whether the zombies are afraid of her, the scene of flying into the car left an extremely shocking impression on many people, so no one blamed her for washing her hands with water, as they all thought it was natural. Lin Sun, have you had enough fun? It's my turn next. Lily washed her hands and shook her wet palms. The bloody palms just now felt sticky and made her very uncomfortable. Now after looking at Lin Sun, who had a pale face, she instinctively ran away when something happened. For Lin Sun, the apocalypse was not a stage for her to show off her talents, and the shadows of her past life came to her mind, and she became what makes her feel very scary is that once she encounters a setback, she instinctively wants to hide in a space. Only a space where no one is there will not hurt her. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 109. Lin Sun is afraid of people and looks down on them, but he also needs people. But the moment she wanted to hide, the sharp pain like needles came to her head again. Lin Sun wanted to curse her now. She couldn't enter the space again. The space seemed to have lost contact again. This situation made Lin Sun extremely scared. The pain in her head quickly subsided, but she could not enter the space. She could only watch Lily walking towards her. Seeing a group of zombies swarming up in the plastic bag where she had just filled her blood without the threat of Lily, she was trembling with fear and subconsciously shrank her body. What are you going to do? Just now she wanted to kill herself, but now she asked herself what she wanted to do. Lily couldn't help but want to laugh. She looked at her huddled up and looked alert and scared. Don't worry, I won't let you die so quickly. Although you just wanted to harm me, how could I let you die so quickly? Well, it's like you had the same idea before, don't you think so? Hearing that she could not die, Lin Sun seemed to be relieved. She thought about her own space. She would always find a way to enter the space. As long as she killed the inexplicable mental power person, she would hide when the time came. Entering the space, Lily Lee couldn't kill her even if he wanted to. Everyone was making up their own minds. When the car drove into the city, it just stopped in front of a supermarket. Lily got out of the car and drove away a large group of zombies that came around. Only then did everyone hold back their laughter and got out of the car and entered the supermarket. 5 months after the apocalypse, they were surprised to see that some zombies did not eat humans. They were somehow afraid of Lily. There were so many zombies surrounding them just now that no one dared to fly into the car. He followed far behind. As soon as Lily came from the car, the zombies began to run away without their lives. There was a stampede. If several soldiers were not afraid that the zombies would come back, they all wanted to see the zombies who had just been trampled to death. Do the zombies have crystal nuclei in their brains? Several people went into the supermarket and picked up a lot of things. After all, they had to go on the road and didn't know if there were any supermarkets along the way, so they picked up a lot of instant noodles and easy-to-cook things. Unexpectedly, 7 or 8 men and women suddenly appeared in the supermarket. The leader was a handsome young man in his 20s who was very tall. He was followed by 3 or 4 equally young men, surrounding him. In the middle, 2 disheveled women were following them desperately. When I saw this group of people, Lin Sun's pupils shrank all of a sudden. Lily took a look and couldn't help but laugh. No wonder Lin Sun always goes this way. It turns out that she actually wants to take revenge on this young man. This young man was her fiancé in her previous life, Wen Ruhing, the man who later destroyed her space bracelet and fell in love with Lin Shui. This man with a very handsome name and a very handsome appearance was, in Lin Sun's mind, a man with a human face and an animal heart. In the plot, after Lin Sun was reborn, although he was quite scheming, he escaped Lin Sun's frame-up several times. But in the end, because he had no special skills or extraordinary luck, he still died under the joint efforts of Lin Sun and Long Yi. But it is worth noting that his scheming is very deep. Although his strength is not as strong as Lin Sun, who has space, their brains are not at the same level. He is a hero-like figure who fell in love with Lin Shui in his previous life at first sight. Later in the plot, Lin Suiruo was not ruined by drugs, and the two had no intersection at all. If the two met early, I'm afraid he would also like Lin Shui. Once they met, Wen Ruhing's eyes immediately fell on Lin Shui. Her eyes shone like 2 bright little suns. She stepped forward and saluted, "Beautiful young lady, my surname is Wen, named Ruhing." The faces of the several men following him had expressions of unbearable look on them. The corners of Lin Shui's mouth twitched. Lin Sun's eyes showed resentment and he pushed Lin Shui away. Because of her resentment, her strength, and movements they were all very fast. After pushing Lin Shui, a hint of evil flashed in Wen Ruhing's eyes. "Who is this? Wen Ruhing, you don't recognize me anymore? That's great. This way, I don't have to be merciful to you." Lin Sun raised her chin proudly. She looked at this bitch man who had failed her in her previous life. We must kill them all. The killing intent in Lin Sun's eyes aroused Wen Ruhing's vigilance. He was a man who would rather kill someone wrong than let someone go. Now that Lin Sun was hostile to him, he naturally wanted to strike first. "I wonder who is the captain of your team?" Wen Ruhing asked, looking at everyone politely. At Lily's signal, Long Yi stood up unhappily. "It's me." As soon as this man appeared, his eyes were glued to Lin Shui. Lin Shui was his future partner, so he was naturally unhappy that someone was coveting him. When Ruhing's eyes flashed, she pointed at Lin Sun and said, "I will use 10 bags of rice and working for you for a month in exchange for this woman for my brother." Lin Sun didn't expect that she would be insulted like this after reviving her life. She was furious and was about to scold Wen Ruhing for her delusions. Long Yi hesitated and nodded. "Long Yi? Are you crazy? Don't forget who I am, she is a dignified wood-type superpower. She has space. Now these cheap men want to trade her around like goods." Just like those two women who knew what they were doing at a glance, Lin Sun could no longer maintain her calmness and dignity at this moment. She was about to curse, but Long Yi sneered, "I have not forgotten who you are, but do you think you can still enter space?" With Lily around, Lin Sun couldn't even think of hiding in space. Long Yi would not let go of the opportunity to torture her. The moment she had the intention to kill her, the two were already enemies. She thought she would be like before. A person who treats her as a treasure, takes care of her at all times, and doesn't dare to show her any mercy? Hearing that Lin Sun had some space, Wen Ruhing's pupils showed a bit of ferocity. She looked at Lin Sun up and down several times, and finally, for some reason, her eyes fell on Lily. There was a look of confusion in his eyes at first, and then he seemed to be struggling. Then he half knelt down towards Lily and stretched out his hand. "My beautiful lady, my surname is Wen and my name is Ruhing. What do you call me?" The corners of Lily's mouth twitched. These words were exactly the same as what he had just said to Lin Shui. I wonder if this was how he struck up a conversation with a woman when he saw her. Lily glanced at him, pointed at Lin Shui and said, "The mother of the beautiful young lady you just asked about. You're actually married?" Married at such a young age, he held his chest, as if he had been stimulated, and suddenly grinned again. "The end of the world has come anyway, where is the beautiful lady's husband?" Long Yi stared at him warily and whispered, "What are you going to do? Ask him if he is willing to compete fairly. If he is not willing, I will unfortunately have to send him to the west." Wen Ruhing's face showed a look of regret, with a smile. It looked like he felt very sorry for his opponent. When Lin Sun heard this, his eyes were red and he shouted at him, "Wen Ruhing, are you shameless? Do you even like an old woman who has given birth to a child?" I can't believe that Wen Ruhing liked Lin Shui in her previous life, but now she wants to talk to Lily Li when she sees her. Could it be that this bitch robbed her mother's husband and later wanted to rob her daughter of a man? Although Lin Sun decided to torture the scumbag to death after he came back from the reincarnation, but she couldn't do anything when everything was going wrong for her now. What's more, when she saw Wen Ruhing, she didn't know if it was because of she thought that Long Yi, who loved her wholeheartedly, also betrayed her relationship. So her hatred for Wen Ruhing was not as strong as before, but it was because he still didn't like her. Lin Sun had the urge to kill him so that no one could get him. Wen Ruhing chuckled softly and turned to Lin Sun, winking at her charmingly. Lin Sun was stunned, and before she could recover, a sharp pain came from her right shoulder. She lowered her head to look. There is an ice pick with a glowing blue light stuck there. Wen Ruhing has an ice power. And now it has reached the level of second-level superpower. How could she forget that the person in front of her was a powerful demon who could kill without batting an eyelid while talking and laughing? In her previous life, it was because of Wen Ruhing's strength that she fell in love with him uncontrollably and relied on him. Could it be that in this life, she was careless after she had space? "Thank you." Wen Ruhing brushed her hair lazily, and when she saw Lily, her eyes showed a flattering smile. She was about to get closer, but Lily gave him a mental attack without politeness, and his face changed slightly, but soon turned into a playful and smiling face, but his big oval eyes showed a bit of caution. "Beautiful lady, please accept my love. My love is like the clouds in the sky, pure and indifferent." Even if Long Yi received a mental attack, he might not be able to hold on and fall to the ground. After a blow to himself, he was still able to stand without changing his expression. Even if he felt uncomfortable, it only lasted for a moment. The benefits of mental attacks were revealed by Lily. They were not only invisible but also unpreventable. After being attacked by Lin Xuan, Guan Kong, even if he was still asleep, he could see how powerful the after effects of this move were, and Wen Ruhing could actually endure it. I'm afraid he is not as easy to deal with as in the plot. I'm afraid Lin Xuan can kill him in the end. It should be as easy as in the plot. My mother is no longer suitable for you. Lin Shui gave Wen Ruhing a warning look. At this moment, Lily's appearance was no different from her appearance more than 10 years ago due to the internal skills she had practiced. But she is not such a beautiful woman, otherwise Lin Jianya would not be able to change his mind later. Everything in the apocalypse is precious, but women are the least valuable. If Wen Ruhing is really powerful, it is impossible not to miss her. Zhong Lin Shui took a fancy to her. Lily frowned. Seeing that the mental attack was useless to him for the first time, she simply let it go again. This time, Wen Ruhing's face turned pale for a moment. Although he was still smiling, the veins on his forehead were jumping. When he came out, it was obvious that he was not as relaxed as he thought. Seeing that Wen Ruhing was about to be affected, Lily felt relieved. She was walking in this apocalyptic world to fulfill Lily's wish. She relied on this kind of powerful strength. Lily's character is that she likes to keep everything to herself, and doesn't like to let others know quickly. Seeing his trump card, for example, Long Yi thought that he already knew enough about him, that he knew martial arts and had mental powers, but he didn't know that he knew Taoism. Height is not a problem, age is not a problem. After Wen Ruhing gritted her teeth and said this, Lily couldn't help but hit him again. This time he couldn't hold on, and fell behind him after stumbling. Of a young man. Brother, the young man saw that his face was a little pale and thought he was injured somewhere. Just after he shouted a few words, Wen Ruhing waved her hand at him, turned to look at Lily and grinned, showing a white smile. Sensen's teeth. There was a hint of determination in his eyes. This man's character is really terrible. He didn't even faint or go crazy even after receiving 3 attacks from himself. He could still remain calm at this moment. Lily herself felt very tired after launching 3 attacks. She had just attacked Lin before. After using it, the mental power is indeed powerful, but it still has shortcomings. After reaching the 3rd level, the lethality becomes greater, but the number of attacks is reduced. Fortunately, Lily doesn't rely on this to kill zombies, otherwise apart from fighting alone, this ability would be useless. But it happened to be enough to deal with Lin Xuan. It didn't matter how many tricks he had, as long as he could deal with her. Get people into the car first. Long Yi gave some sour instructions. He seemed to feel some kind of instinctive crisis when Wen Ruhing arrived. It felt like something that belonged to him would be taken away, and he was very unhappy, but he thought that he had just accepted such a group of boys, and it would be a pity not to use it. Anyway, there was more than enough room for dozens of people in the back of the truck, so he still let people get on the truck. Several men pushed Wen Ruhing into the car. He also jumped up, and the 2 disheveled women looked a little scared. But when he heard the roar of zombies around him, he still held back his tears and climbed into the car. Lin Xuan screamed and was pulled into a corner by one of the men who had just gotten on the car. The young people gathered around and Wang Piazi was so anxious that she burst into tears and rushed forward. She had a good appearance. Coupled with the fact that I drank space water again, I now look white and tender. Compared to the 2 unkempt women just now, she was much cleaner and more beautiful, so she was simply pulled in. Wait a minute. Lily frowned and glanced at Lin Jianya, who was sitting aside with a cowering expression, frowned, and said to Wen Ruhing, who seemed to have regained her energy quickly, I don't care about Lin Xuan, but what happened just now? Woman, let go. Wang Piazi is not a bad person in the plot, She is just a weak and helpless woman. Even though Lin Sun did so many things in the plot later, it actually has nothing to do with her. Lily Li did not say that she wanted to seek revenge from Wang Piazi. In this case, it hurts. It's up to Lily to decide not to hurt her. When Ruhing glanced at Lily, with a childlike doubt in her eyes, he said lazily to the person in the corner, "You've gone too far. Have you seen Miss Lily angry?" When she first got in the car, she easily got Lily's name out of Lin Shui's mouth, and she started calling Lily's name familiarly. Fortunately, Lily was not really in her 40s, so now she didn't think there was anything weird about it. People like Wen Ruhing looked playful and smiling on the outside, but in fact they had stronger willpower than anyone else and might not be easy to change, so Lily didn't bother to argue with him. At this moment, when Wang Piazi was thrown out, everyone was already dumbfounded. Most of her clothes were torn apart. When she saw Lily, she didn't care whether she was his husband's stealing enemy or not. He hugged her and cried. "Got up." She was a little worried about Lin Sun. After she finished crying, she glanced at Lily. "Miss Li, I know now, you are a good person, please save our Suner." Lily just pretended not to hear. The car stopped by a trail in the evening, and the people gathered in the corner dispersed. When he opened it, Lin Sun was revealed. His body was in a mess, and his eyes exuded an abnormally dark look. She looked at Wen Ruhing sitting next to Lily and laughed gloomily. "Wen Ruhing, you will get your comeuppance." She was a dignified young lady from the Lin family, God's darling, and she had space after rebirth, but she was gang-raped by such a group of men as a woman in exchange for things. I don't know if it was because she was too hateful, but Lily's lock on her space suddenly broke. After a twist of her body, she disappeared into the truck. Normal people would be frightened when they saw such a scene, but I don't know if it was the end of the world. Many people just glanced numbly in the direction where Lin Sun disappeared, and then went back to doing their own things. When Lin Sun appeared again, it was also the next morning, and all the wounds on her body had disappeared, but no matter how beautiful her appearance was, Lily believed that there was still a heavy shadow left in her heart. She rushed towards Lin Shui like lightning, twisting a bucket in her hand. When she felt her breath appear, Lily kicked her far away and attacked her with her spirit. I wonder if Lin Sun was too hurt this time, but this mental attack did not let her fall asleep again. Instead, it only made her hold her head in pain. The contents of the bucket she was carrying spilled out, and after a while, she fell asleep. "Melt a hole out of the truck." "Are you crazy?" Long Yi looked at the cardboard with some distress, his eyes were red. "You don't want to stay anymore. Just get out of here. You are all going to die at this moment." Lin Sun was like a crazy person. After a while, she took out the gasoline and lighter again. It was obvious that what happened yesterday had stimulated her too much, and now she was a little agitated. Unable to control herself, everyone was shocked when they saw her in such a situation. Regardless of whether they were lovers or partners before, when their lives were threatened, everyone still took actions that were beneficial to themselves. When Ruhing's ice arrow shot through the gasoline barrel in Lin Sun's hand, and someone kicked her far away, and ignited the lighter in her hand. For a moment, Lin Sun Bao let out a high-pitched cry. She rolled around several times before quickly disappearing. "This crazy woman!" Long Yi cursed bitterly. Half an hour later, Lin Sun's figure appeared again. This time she didn't want to throw gasoline or sulfuric acid. This time she took out many kitchen knives and threw them at everyone like crazy, regardless of whether there was her mother in the crowd. She was like a wild beast that had been stimulated. She comes out every half an hour, and even if she can hurt someone, she will get hurt. But she didn't care, there were new tricks every time she came out. After a long time, Long Yi became impatient and said in a dark voice, "Aunt Li, is there any good way to solve this hidden danger in one fell swoop? No matter how patient you are, you can't bear to face the assassination of a crazy woman over and over again." Especially living in an environment like the end of the world, where you have to face many crises every day, where can you find the time to fool around with the lingering Lin Suan? What Ant Li? It's obviously my Sayuri when Ruhing winked at Lily and was harassed by Lin Suan one after another. Many soldiers with strong physical fitness inevitably showed fatigue on their faces, and several of them were even injured. When Ruhing still looked like an old god. Yesterday she suffered 3 mental attacks from herself, but now she seemed to have no sequelae. This person's eyes were introverted, which could be seen from the way he walked. His skills should not be bad. Such a person is too weird. If you can't be an enemy with him, it is naturally better to be friends. Okay, if she shows up again, the game should be over. Wang Piazi on the side heard this, tears flowed from her eyes, but she did not dare to say anything anymore. When Lin Suan appeared in a crazy posture again, Lily used all her mental strength to look at her. Although Lin Suan was already crazy, she couldn't bear the mental stimulation she suffered several times in a row. She suddenly fell to the ground, and suddenly seemed to understand something, pointing to Lily, among you, some psychic person. Not bad. Lily walked towards her, not afraid of what methods she would use. She attacked Lin Suan again, and when she saw her unbearable headache, she sneered, it's the person with mental powers who made you sleepy for so long and prevented your revenge plan from being realized. I'm really sorry. Lin Suan could accept anyone with mental powers. Now when he heard that Lily had caused his apocalyptic plan to fail before it even started, Lin Suan almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't even ask why he was doing this. Did you feel good yesterday? When you wanted to plot against Lin Shui, she should have felt like this. Lily glanced at Lin Shui, who was clenching her fists not far away, and then turned her head back. Your secret, in fact, I already knew it. Watching you sing for 10 years is really wonderful. Collecting food to survive the end of the world. Lin Suan, how do you know what is happening in the end of the world? Lin Suan was exhausted after being attacked several times. When asked by Lily, she couldn't help crying. She didn't know what she was thinking of. She covered her head and shouted, "Shut up, mouth. I died miserably in my previous life. You are not willing to accept it in this life. Do you want to start over?" Lily came closer to her and whispered in her ear, "When you die at the hands of your fiancé, the space you rely on to survive is destroyed." When Lily said this, she stretched out her fingers and flicked the jade bracelet on her wrist. Now her fingertips exerted internal force. The force was so strong that a trace of cracks appeared on the smooth jade bracelet. Lin Suan, seeing such a scene, I almost didn't go crazy and screamed at the top of my lungs, "What do you want to do?" After experiencing an incident where her bracelet was destroyed, Lin Suan was like a helpless woman who was at the mercy of others. She had no space and no so-called spring water. In fact, she was just an ordinary woman. I have repaid you the suffering Lin Shui suffered in the previous life. You have tasted the feeling of being reincarnated. Now I don't have to force you to take drugs. In fact, you are not much better without space. Space is not good for you. It's a deadly poison, right? Just like Lin Shui fell into Lin Suan's trap and fell into her special ambush. In fact, Lin Suan, who was so glorious in the plot, was just poisoned by the poison called space. Not without the space, Lin Suan is nothing. Lily will not take action against her again. From now on, she is just an ordinary first-level superpower. In this era when there are gradually more superpowers, and even more powerful ones appear, sooner or later she will also it will be reduced to a vulgar trend and will no longer be the scenery in the plot. Lin Suan was dumbfounded as he saw more and more cracks on the jade bracelet, and suddenly he waved his hand towards his neck. She wanted to die. Without space, she didn't even have the courage to live, but how could Lily let her die so easily? In such an apocalyptic world, death is not terrible, and may be a kind of relief. Only the living people have to struggle desperately to survive, and that is the greatest pain. Lily took out a talisman that had been prepared long ago and punched it into Lin Sun's body. If she wanted to die, she would only experience pain twice as painful as death and would not be able to commit suicide at all. If you come here a few more times, people like Lin Sun may become scared. Lily walked back to Lin Shui. No one looked at Lin Sun, who was lying on the roadside wailing. The jade bracelet on her wrist broke into several pieces and fell beside her, scratching her body with blood. But there is no change anymore. 2 years later, Lily helped Lin Shui set up a base, and Long Yi also stayed in this base. He was still pursuing Lin Shui, who had become a man that many bases were competing to marry. When Ruhing also he did not leave, but this time he strangely did not pursue Lin Shui. Instead, he chased Lily. However, because Lily had no intention of accepting him, he became a famous joke in the base. Because zombies are afraid of Lily, this base has become the safest place among the bases built in the country. Everyone knows that the owner of the base, Lin Shui, is a healing, gentle and beautiful single girl. She also has a I am afraid of zombies, and many people come here to see her. In front of the checkpoint of the base, a middle-aged woman with a face full of vicissitudes introduced herself in a low voice. Lin Sun, wood power level 2. When she heard Lin Sun's name, the middle-aged woman who was checking her body grinned and turned to look at her. Suner, I'm Mujia. Chia, do you still remember me? Mujia will never forget the day she was destroyed. If it weren't for Lin Sun, she wouldn't have ended up like this. If it weren't for Lin Sun, she wouldn't have gone crazy. If it wasn't for Lin Sun. It's unusual for someone to be bullied every day in the base, but it's also rare for someone to be bullied so much that they don't dare to fight back even though they have wood powers. The heroine who was so glamorous in the plot finally became a very ordinary person after she lost her space, and never became a queen in the plot. This mission lasted a little longer. In addition to being Tao Bei who lived for hundreds of years because of her Taoist training, Lily also lived to be 100 years old this time. Lin Shui is now married. She didn't marry Long Yi, she just accepted Long Yi as her subordinate. Now her grandchildren have grown up. Before Lily closed her eyes, she seemed to see Wen Ruhing, who had been pestering her all her life, appear. He for the first time, there was no playful smile in his eyes like before. Instead, there was only a lot of sadness in his eyes, as if he was really hurt. A major update of 7,000 words. Due to the onset of obsessive-compulsive disorder, I don't want an extra word in the title, so the two updates are combined into one. I hope you can forgive me, dears. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 110. When she returned to the starry sky, Lily couldn't help but want to laugh. Wen Ruhing was such an ever-changing man, powerful but also a gamer. Lily had never been able to figure out where his strength lay in her whole life, even if it was her own spirit later. After reaching the 10th level of superpower, when he attacked him again, he showed no more than an understatement. Lily was sure that his superpower was better than hers, but he would never marry or have children, nor would he revolve around Lin Shui. Instead, he just following her. Lily could see that Lin Shui liked him a little, and she didn't know why she suddenly married someone else. Anyway, the task was completed. She shook her head, and Li Yangzi's figure quickly appeared in front of her in the starry sky. He seemed to have a faint fluorescence on his body, and his whole person looked bright and dazzling. His face seemed to have a bit more popularity, not as cold and distant as before, but also seemed to be a little unreal. Congratulations, Lily. He nodded lightly at Lily, his robe swayed slightly, and he didn't move much, but he suddenly appeared in front of Lily. The mission was completed well this time. What surprised me is that you were so lucky. What do you want to add to this time? Lily used to see him standing far away from her, but this time he seemed to his expression was fuller, and he no longer gave off the feeling of being smiling but not smiling. I wonder if it was Lily's misunderstanding, but there seemed to be a bit of melancholy in his eyes, as if he was similar to Wen Ruhing. I want to add it to the force value. The values of intelligence and appearance were already equal. Lily looked at her pitiful force value and decided to increase the force value first. As soon as she got down to business, she suppressed Li Yangzi's changes just now. Li Yangzi nodded with a smile, and raised his hand as if it was about to touch Lily's head. Lily subconsciously wanted to hide, but just reacted. He came over but stopped abruptly. Her information appeared again in the starry sky. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 61, out of 100. Appearance, 60, out of 100. Physical strength, 59, out of 100. Force, 18, out of 100 points. Spirit, 15, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique. Specialties, Intermediate Cooking Skills. Charisma, 28, out of 100. Collection, The Love of the Corpse King, The Blessing of the Saint. When Lily saw this attribute, she was immediately surprised. Why did it increase so much? Not only did her intelligence increase a little, but her physical strength and force were also increased. The mental strength has been increased by 4 points, and even the charm has been increased. I don't know what good thing I have done this time, but I have increased so many attribute values at once. So, I didn't say you were lucky, Li Yangzi smiled, in the skill column. However, the light of the 9 Yang Manual dimmed. Lily had almost ignored the situation because of the huge increase in attribute values. Now, when she saw it, her heart almost rose to her throat, and she subconsciously asked, then my skills. The 9 Yang Manual can appear in your skill list because it is mysterious enough. And because it is relatively powerful. After being practiced. When Li Yangzi said this, there was a cold look on his face, but as more people learn it, it becomes less mysterious, and naturally it won't appear on top anymore. Lily's heart almost rose to her throat when she heard this. When she was teaching Lin Shui martial arts, she always had an instinctive hunch that she wouldn't be able to teach her much. Now the retribution was coming, and she felt a little chilly in her heart. At this moment, she felt a little regretful. After all, the 9 Yang Manual was a help to her. Every time she learned a skill, she had more capital to save her life. If she had known that teaching martial arts to others would make her own martial arts less valuable, Lily would definitely not dare to teach them. She would rather take revenge herself. Every gain must come with a loss, Li Yangzi said lightly, and then asked, do you want to continue the mission? Lily has always been very diligent. She is not the most talented among the people Li Yangzi performs the mission, but she is the one who persists the longest. Many people either lose themselves after entering the world, or they are no longer willing to part with the fame, status, wealth, and even men in the mission world, but she persists, sometimes unexpectedly. Surprise him beyond anything else. Yes, Lily nodded, and Li Yangzi showed a slight smile. In the end, this smile was the only thing left in Lily's mind, as if the stars in the space had lost their color under this smile. Well, be gentler, be gentler, be gentler. It hurt so much. A woman's moan came into Lily's mind, and her head felt like it was about to explode for a moment, and the plot had not yet entered her mind. But a strong sense of unwillingness and resentment spread into her heart. Her body moved slightly, as if a big mountain was pressing on her body. She frowned, and as soon as she moved her palm, a man moaned in her ear. There was a sound, and the palm of Lily's hand seemed to be a man's strong chest. I wonder if it was due to the increase in mental power after completing the last mission. Although her head hurt this time, she quickly recovered. Wang Bei, turn your humming face to the side, show a smile, and show your face to someone with a sad face. Lily opened her eyes and saw a man pressing above her body, naked, and she was also naked. She narrowed her eyes and used all her strength to kick the man away. The man was not paying attention for a moment, and he probably had exercised too much. At this moment, he was kicked backwards by Lily, and bumped into a man and woman who were busy next to him. This is a white room about 20 square meters in size. There are currently 7 or 8 pairs of men and women inside, each in a similar state to Lily's just now, except that they have already entered, while Lily has not yet entered. The moans that came and went from everywhere stopped for a moment because the man was kicked down. Many men who were heaving raised their heads. There were men standing behind several cameras. Unlike other people in the room, these men were wearing clothes. A man with a long ruler and long curly hair was originally sitting on a chair with his legs crossed. When he saw Lily kicking the man off her body, he was stunned at first, and then became furious. Wang Bei, do you still want to do it? If you don't want to do it, get out of here. You've already come to this place, why are you still pretending to be a chaste and fierce woman? If you ask me to take pictures from now on, I won't do it, so get out of here. You still want 100,000, go eat shit. Lily was not a fool now. She already understood what this place was. She couldn't help but feel a sense of shame and anger in her heart. No matter how many missions she had done, she had never faced so many people naked in her life. A bit of anger arose in her heart, and now the plot in her mind seemed to feel her anger and all came out. When the man with long curly hair saw Lily's pale face, he couldn't help but cursed, "Damn it, are you pretending to be sick now and want to blackmail us? I tell you, there is no way for others to do it. I haven't really fallen in love with you, these are your clothes, get out of here." After he finished speaking, he threw a set of clothes over. Lily couldn't stand it anymore and quickly called Li Yangzi in the space to pull out his soul. When he saw Wang, Lily instinctively put on her clothes and walked out of the building, and then she returned to her body again. After leaving the hall, Lily endured a severe headache and found a deserted corner to huddle in while absorbing the plot. She had completed so many missions. Only the beginning of this one embarrassed her the most, as she actually traveled through time. When she arrived at the set of such a movie, a lot of plots flooded into her mind. About 3 hours later, after Lily had received the plots, she couldn't help but want to curse her. The original owner of the mission she entered this time was named Wang, who was also named Lily. She was originally from a very remote and impoverished mountain village in China. Lily Wang had a pure and elegant appearance since she was a child, and she was known as one of the best in the village. She is a beautiful woman. Her parents have been very fond of her since she was a child. She has a very harmonious family. However, Lily Wang has been watching the beautiful and glamorous celebrities on TV since she was a child. She also has a dream of becoming a star. She hopes to rely on her own ability to become a star. She can bring her parents to enjoy the happiness in the future. She yearns for a better life in the city. She thinks that with her beauty and hard work, she can leave the impoverished mountain village and enter the city, and bring her parents with her into the city. Before she graduated from high school, she packed up her things and went to the city despite her parents' objections. Everything in the city made the girl in the village happy and joyful. She was quickly fascinated by the prosperity of all this and became ambitious because she was quite a bit ambitious. Because of her innocent beauty, she was noticed by a brokerage company and selected into its agency, becoming the star she always dreamed of becoming famous. It was only after she entered the company that she discovered that the life of a star was not as glamorous as she had imagined. She had no status, no fame, and no backstage. She could not play some big roles, and some minor supporting roles were not hers. She had to compete with some new girls for bit parts, and no agent was willing to take on a newcomer like her. She had to work hard on her own. In some movies, she was a supporting role without even showing her face, and she still needed to do it herself. She also had to fight with others to bring clothes. This kind of life soon made Lily Wang feel scared, especially since no director liked her, but there were still many people who liked a pure-looking girl like her. The agency forced her to accompany clients, and if she didn't obey, and later even sat on the bench. At this desolate time, she thought she had met the Prince Charming in her life, but later the man who caused her to fall into the abyss was Song Tiankai, a has-been third-rate male star. This man had sweet words at his fingertips and quickly coaxed Lily Wang into being devoted to him. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation. P.S. Passerby's Life of Cultivating Immortals. In front of her is the heroine of the original novel who has risen to prominence. Followed by a time-traveling heroine who vows to defy the heavens. Hey, that certain guy in the middle, don't move around. The fourth update is complete. Fan votes will be doubled starting tomorrow. I just don't want to sing chrysanthemums and leave wounds everywhere. Is this too much to ask? Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 111. Song Tiankai has been in the entertainment industry for many years. He has no reputation at all, but he is proficient in eating, drinking, and having fun. Step by step, he is like weaving a huge web, trapping the silly butterfly Wang Beihe into it. Wang Beihe has worked hard for many years, and occasionally she had been doing odd jobs and occasionally doing part-time jobs. She had done everything. She had saved a little money over the years, but it was not much. However, Song Tiankai defrauded her of all his money in just 6 months. In the end, he even pretended to be pitiful and asked Lily Wang to borrow money. Money caused Lily Wang to be in debt. If that was all, in order to get money from Lily Wang, he finally tricked Lily Wang into filming a high movie, and lied to her that as long as she finished filming one scene, he would stop doing it, and he wouldn't dislike it. Lily Wang, on the contrary, will marry her in the future. For a country girl, she would not even accompany someone to dinner to ask for a position in the past, but now she was deceived by Song Tiankai and reluctantly agreed to his request. Lily Wang seems to have no luck in acting, but when it comes to filming such unsightly films, she seems to be born to be liked by others. She has a pure face, and her films are almost always the ones with the best sales. Gradually, she becomes famous in the industry. She has gained some fame in her home, and her finances are more relaxed than before, but there is no paper in the world that can cover the fire. After all, the news about her came back to the small mountain village. Her parents were so angry with her that they refused to do so before they died. She recognized her as her daughter, and when she thought she still had Song Tiankai, she sadly discovered that she had contracted AIDS. Song Tiankai, who had coaxed her into marrying her, took the money but didn't even see her face. When she had nothing, the silly girl Wang Beihe finally became smart for once. She asked someone to investigate Song Tiankai, only to find that he had a childhood sweetheart. The two had a deep relationship. When they were preparing to talk about marriage, they were separated because Song Tiankai could not provide the money needed by the girl's parents. Sheng Sheng married Song Tiankai's girlfriend to someone else. From then on, Song Tiankai swore that no woman in the world could be trusted. He wanted to make those who looked down on him regret it. He believed that women in the world were dirty. He wants to take revenge on women, and he wants to make the women he encounters suffer a bad death. But the plan could not match the rapid changes. Before he met Lily Wang, he met his first love again. That first love girlfriend told him that she had always had him in her heart. It was just because his parents threatened him with death and couldn't bear to implicate him, so they reluctantly broke up. Now she was married to another man, but her life was not happy. The words of her first girlfriend healed the scars in Song Tiankai's heart, and he quickly forgave her. Something happened between the two of them that shouldn't have happened while they were drunk, but at this moment, Song Tiankai felt as happy as if he owned the whole world. My first girlfriend is already married. If there is a divorce, the man must pay $1 million in one lump sum. Although Song Tiankai entered the entertainment industry in the first half of his life, he has always been tepid and has no chance of making big money. In addition, he used to be like a lover. Like a prodigal, show mercy everywhere. If you have money, you can buy wine, cigarettes, and women. Now you can't even spare 10,000. How can you get 1 million? Just when the two of them were extremely anxious, Lily Wang came into his sight like a little prey. As expected, this little prey was obedient and docile. He would give her money when he was asked, and take pictures when she was asked. More importantly, it's because Song Tiankai now has the love of his heart, and when he can no longer look down on other vulgar fans, she is obedient and doesn't ask for sex from him. She thinks that he respects her and doesn't force her, and even goes to the sea for himself. For a film like that, where can I find such a woman? While Lily Wang was gritting her teeth and selling her body, self-esteem, and soul for love, Song Tiankai was having an affair with his first girlfriend. After a few years passed and Lily Wang worked hard for a year to make movies, she finally contracted AIDS and could no longer help them. When I made money, the number was almost 2 million. You must know that in this film, Lily Wang raised only 20,000 to 30,000 yuan from the beginning and had to save up to 1 million. You can imagine how many films she made to satisfy Song Tiankai's nonsense, about making money to buy a house and then having another family in the future. She worked hard to raise her children to form a family. She was even innocent when she made her first movie. Because of this, the price of her first movie was extremely high. It cost 100,000 yuan. She bought it with 100,000 yuan. When Bai Wang thought that Song Tiankai would not despise her if she sacrificed for love, Song Tiankai and his first girlfriend had a party with 1/10 of the million. Later, Lily Wang felt that since she was dirty, once she was dirty, and she was dirty even if she was dirty twice, so she broke the rules. She was the only one who dared to accept the films that people in the industry did not dare to accept. She became the most desperate person in the industry. It was not until she contracted AIDS that everyone in her past alienated her. After she learned that Song Tiankai was already with her first girlfriend, she felt that her life had been cheated, and she finally couldn't stand it anymore. She sold her body for Songda, ruined herself so much that her parents were angry to death, and ended up in pain for Songda, but Songda lied to her from beginning to end. If the money she deceived was for him to squander, I'm afraid Wang Bei would feel better, but he actually deceived herself like this just to be with another woman. Wang Bei couldn't understand it. She had had a dream of becoming a star since she was a child. But later she discovered that becoming a star was not an easy road. She settled for the next best thing and only hoped to have a true lover, but found that such a simple wish was difficult to realize. In the end, when she begged Songda to change his mind, Songda only laughed at her. Do you think I would really want a bitch with red lips and arms that can be used by thousands of people? I'm afraid men are tired of looking at your body. Do you think I would pick up such a cuckold? What's more, you are sick. Do you know that you are sick? People like you are just a disaster when they are alive, it is better to die. And do you know how your parents know about you? I told them, when Wang Bei knelt down and begged him, and said that his parents were angry to death because of this, and that he did it all for him. Songda only sneered twice, since your parents are dead, why don't you die and reunite with them? The cold words hurt Lily Wang's heart, and this fact also made her heart full of holes. She put on the clothes she took off herself, jumped from a high building in the Chinese imperial capital, and died on the spot. Before she died, Lily Wang resented Song Tiankai. She hated Song Tiankai and his first girlfriend to the bone. The two men had lied to her and she was now terminally ill. She was not willing to die, but she really couldn't live anymore. After contracting such a disease, no one would want to get close to her again. She had no friends, no relatives, and even no money. She became like a rat crossing the street, and everyone shouted at her to beat her. She thought of her simple dream of becoming a star. Thinking about the warm faces of my parents in my memory, thinking about myself being alone now, with a body riddled with holes, enduring endless torture, and feeling relieved with resentment. When Lily finished receiving the plot, she felt uncontrollable pain in her head. In fact, the mission this time is very clear. Lily Wang has a little more wishes, but except for one thing that is troublesome, the rest of the things are not difficult. First, she hopes to realize her dream of becoming a star, a real dream of becoming a star. Instead of standing in front of the camera and posing, nor taking off her clothes to let others play with her body, and finally selling herself to achieve the goal of becoming famous. In her previous life, she took off too many clothes, from the shame and despair at the beginning to numb, she has had enough of men looking at her with lustful eyes. She wants to fulfill her simple dream as a girl and become a star with some achievements. The second wish was to make her parents proud of her and no longer ashamed of her like in the plot. In the end, she was even angry to death, which became Lily Wang's heartache and not in her heart later on. Of course, the third most important wish is to make Song Tiankai and his first girlfriend Wang Huijin die a good death, and to make them more miserable than Lily Wang, so as to calm Lily Wang's anger, especially the death of her parents. When she learned that she was related to Song Tiankai, Wang Beihe was very resentful. After sorting out the plot in her mind, Lily quickly calmed down. It was very simple to make Song Tiankai and Wang Huijin die. As long as she was strong, she could take revenge on these two bitches as much as she wanted. These two bitches, when Song Tiankai and Wang Beihe were together, except for the trace of innocence between her eyebrows and the look she occasionally looked at him, which looked a bit like Wang Huijin, it was because her last name was the same as Wang Huijin. Wang's, so Lily Wang later resented these two people deeply and wanted to see their painful ending. This is not difficult, and it is also easy to take care of Lily Wang's parents and support them so that they can enjoy their old age instead of dying early. With Lily's intermediate cooking skills, she can continue her old profession, then even if she opens a restaurant, she can still support Lily Wang's parents. As for not making them angry to death, that will be easier, because she has never prepared to make those inferior movies again, let alone her. I'm afraid it's the original owner would never do such a thing again in his reincarnation. It was not worth ruining his life for a bitch. Lily Wang had already understood this fact before she died, but unfortunately it was too late to regret it. The most critical and difficult thing is to become a star. Lily does not belong to these worlds. In her opinion, she is just a passerby. Sometimes even if she can spend decades or even hundreds of years in the world of missions, in her heart these times were just a blink of an eye, and she didn't take it seriously. After a few missions, her personality was a little cold, and because she was doing missions, it was usually best for her not to attract other people's attention, and she usually stayed trapped around her own tasks. She just completed the task silently. This time Lily Wang actually wanted to become a star that attracted much attention, and Lily couldn't help but have a headache. To be continued. If you like this work, you are welcome to vote for recommendations and monthly votes. Your support is my biggest motivation.